Hey, what's going on there, folks? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're at out there. Hey, we made it halfway through the work week. It is Wednesday, December 6th, 2023, about 12:30 p.m. here, California time, where it's actually raining for once. Not really expecting too much rain, but hey, I'll take anything we can get here. 2.6. The latest earthquake out here around the Mediterranean. That's the latest movement out here on the globe. Zoom in here of the California region where we've been watching, well, some earthquake activity here over the past couple days. Last 24 hours of 2.5 and above shows the latest one here off the coast of the San Luis Obispo area. That's on a little fault just offshore. Is that the Hosgri fault zone? Looks like a little 2.6, 4 kilometers deep on that fault. That is on the west side here of this plate boundary. That's going to be the Pacific Plate. A little bit of movement further down south from last night, and it looks like they had a couple more this morning as well. Let's go ahead and zoom in and see what we got. Actually, these from last night down here in the Octello area. The ones recently are up here around the Ridgecrest area. Just north of the Garlock Fault Shear Zone, a 2.8 and a 2.5. So still kind of keeping an eye on Southern California over the last couple days. If we zoom into this area of interest down here, we've seen roughly about 80 earthquakes or so in the last couple days around this region of Octilio, and the largest magnitude is a 4.8. A lot of times we can see this activity, even this small amount of earthquake activity, really ramp up following a 4-pointer or even a 3-pointer. And sometimes they just die off. So a lot of times, though, we'll see these swarms kick up here and then see a larger event. So that's kind of why we're keeping an eye on the Southern California area. But for now, here in the last 24 hours, shows about 8 earthquakes in this area, including that 3.7 and that 3.4 from last night, which were literally within minutes of each other. So continuing to watch that and seeing if anything else kicks up. Also, we got a little separate swarm over here on the Imperial Fault. So it's not just one little area. When we see multiple areas showing elevated earthquake uptick, obviously it's a good sign of some regional stress out here against the plate boundary. And in terms, that can create the potential for some larger earthquake activity. Of course, along the San Andreas Fault, we know that is capable of producing an 8.1 earthquake out here. And that would definitely shake the nerves of everyone out here for sure. I don't know how far it'd be felt up north here, but an 8-pointer, goodness, that would definitely create a lot of havoc down there in Southern California. So anytime we get swarming around this area, I kind of perk up my ears a little bit and keep my guard up, and I think you guys should as well. All right, see here, some smaller microquake activity is mentioned here around the Ridgecrest area. Northern California, a handful of earthquakes around the Bay Area, mostly centered inland. Looks like there's that 2.5 from early this morning. That's on the southern edge here. Well, maybe about center section of the Calaveras Fault Zone. That's a pretty lengthy fault that runs secondary here following the San Andreas Fault. Definitely capable of some large-scale earthquake activity. Not at 8.1, but even a 7 around this area would definitely be doing some damage. So kind of keep an eye on this area as well. In general, like I say, California has been elevated out here across the region. Pacific Northwest, not so much. I'm not really seeing anything showing up here on the earthquake map. Inland into the Intermountain West regions and Yellowstone. A couple small earthquakes up in Montana. Yellowstone not showing anything, but I always want to double check here because that's just what I do. I have to verify the information, even though we expect the government officials to, produce the most accurate information. Sometimes they don't get it all, though. And it looks like today they got it all because there's not a whole lot of earthquake activity out there across the Yellowstone area. I'm not seeing anything for that matter. All right. Further to the south and east, Texas area, still getting some earthquake activity out there around Pecos, Texas. And a little bit of movement here in Oklahoma as well. This region has seen quite a bit of earthquake activity, actually, confined locally to this region northwest of Purcell, Blanchard area. It's in the North Dibble oil field here. Got about 63 earthquakes in the last 30 days. Nothing big, all magnitudes here, including up to a 2.6. So generally small microquake activity, but it just goes to show you that these oil fields out here can definitely be subject to increased strain and stress. It's hard to tell here in this area of Oklahoma, Texas, and certain other regions. You can see the oil fields easily, but sometimes they blend in out here across the area. There's a lot of farmhouses out here as well, but either way, it says on the map here out around the north, here's a Freeney oil field as well. So this whole region is just littered with oil fields, and that's again subject to some increased stress and pressure from the North American plate, and that's why we see those earthquakes taking place. Puerto Rico area, handful of earthquakes, so nothing major. Looks like things calming down there slightly across that area. South America region seeing some deeper activity. Look at that deep earthquake right here. Let's see if we can find it on the USGS map. Is that going to be this one? I don't know if that's going to be. It might be 116 kilometers deep, 4.3. Kind of looks like it's deeper than that. Yeah, this one's showing a 4.1, 557 kilometers deep. Goodness. Some deep activity there into the Peru Chile Trench. So keep an eye on that. We did see some divergent boundary activity just offshore last night. Of course, when we see that divergent activity taking place, that does add further strain up here across the subduction zone. Kermadec Trench, New Zealand area looks pretty quiet aside from a 3.9 north here of the North Island. Some older movement from yesterday. Today's activity confined here once again around the Philippines, where we're still seeing quite a bit of earthquake activity ramping up here, and a little bit of plate adjustment going on here across Taiwan. These three earthquakes coming in late last night, including up to, well, we had a 4.3 and looks like the highest of 5.0 in this area. Still seeing some movement here in the Philippines, expected. And I think we did see, let's see here, it looks like the largest aftershock is going to be a 5.4 earlier this morning into the Philippine Trench, about 20 kilometers or so. Still getting some variable depths here for these earthquakes. That is still a good indicator of quite a bit of strain up against this region. So it's possible we still could see some larger scale earthquake activity, but I don't think so. If anything, aftershock movement will take place, and some of those aftershocks could be up there in the 5, maybe even a 6 range. It's always possible, but again, as time goes on here, the likelihood of anything larger compared to the 7.6 diminishes. One earthquake down here in Papua New Guinea. That looks like about 3 o'clock in the morning my time. Deep activity taking place there once again. So haven't really seen too much migration out here across the Java Trench. Kind of waiting on that if it even takes place. For now, big time clutter going on across the Philippines. A couple 2s and 3s, even maybe a 4 down here off the coast of Sumatra. A 1 3.3 up along the plate boundary here in the Myanmar region. And earthquake activity in the Gulf of Aden. Looks like that, well, we had one more after midnight, 4.5, but it looks like things are calming down there. Definitely been somewhat elevated out here in this divergent boundary, this fracture zone out in the oceanic crust, the West Sheba Ridge area. Seen quite a bit of 4s and 5s over the last 48 hours. Now, there is an earthquake up here on the globe in the Spain region here, 5.6. A lot of times the U.S., well, not the USGS, but it's the EMSC model, will throw out a false magnitude quake here. And the earthquake 3D globe stopped earlier. I don't know when it stopped or how long it was stopped for, but it's weird. Sometimes stuff like that happens, and it makes me scratch my head a little bit thinking, what's going on here? Why would it automatically stop? Let me go to the earthquake map here, and see what we got. Now, this is the earthquake in question. It's a 3.2. Why it still shows up as a 5.6 on the earthquake 3D globe? Well, that's a little technical glitch here that occurs around the Spain area. I'm not for sure why, but it just whenever the EMSC model puts out an earthquake, a preliminary earthquake for this area, it will not revise itself. And I'm not for sure why. I can refresh it many times and it still shows up as a 5.6, even though it's a 3-pointer. So be questionable about earthquake activity you see specifically in this area. And if you do see a 5.6 pop up, verify that with the USGS, because they would definitely show something of that magnitude out here, and it's just not taking place here. All right, the Atlantic Ocean. Let's see what we got. Not a whole lot showing up out here. Nothing major going on. In fact, things look awfully quiet. Let me zoom into the big island of Hawaii, see if we got anything different going on here today. As far as earthquake activity, it doesn't look like it. We'll go check out the latest informational statement here. That's Hawaii. We'll check that, or Alaska. We'll check that out in a second. This update on Hawaii put out today. The volcano is currently not erupting. And, of course, low levels of seismicity continue in the rift zones out here around the Kilauea volcano. Doesn't look like anything is kicked up following that 5-pointer here a couple days ago. A little information statement here on the Katmai volcano up there in Alaska. It looks like some northwest winds in the vicinity of this volcano in the valley of 10,000 smokes had picked up loose volcanic ash erupted during the 1912 event. So this is not in relation to any eruption taking place there at that volcano. The Trident volcano remains at color code yellow due to elevated earthquake activity. Of course, this specific volcano that we're talking about here is in the normal and green. So occasionally some strong winds will kick up loose volcanic ash that has been deposited there in the past eruptions that was over 100 years ago. Crazy. All right, a glance. I want to check out the inflation data at the Kilauea volcano, see what's going on here across the big island today. Yep, as expected. All right, we're looking at that inflation rise back up. It's that trend that never ends until it does end, right? With an eruption. This last pause in the inflation was very short compared to the previous deflation events that lasted for maybe 2 days or more. But this last one was very short and minimal. We're starting to rise back up here. Now, most models here, if we look at trends, will probably show this inflation event continue up on the chart and above the previous highest level reached of inflation in the past 5 years there at the Kilauea volcano since that 2018 eruption. So we're still elevated, folks. Just a matter of time. Question is, how much more time? Continue to watch that. Still seeing some volcanic gases out there across the lava lake area of the crater there at Kilauea volcano. That's obviously going to continue for a while. Look at this, man. Goodness. We got a lot of earthquake, or not earthquake activity, but this is spiky flare activity going on here across the flare chart. I had this trouble with that site yesterday as well. Not for sure what's going on. I don't know if it's the Solar Ham or maybe the Space Weather Prediction Center, but it looks fine now. A lot of up and down here on the chart. A lot of C-flare activity, very active on the sun in the last 24 hours. And that is coming off of a sunspot that is now, well, a little bit better perspective here of that region. Mainly this area right here does look like it's currently flaring slightly. Looks fairly complex. Let's see what it looks like here in terms of magnetic potential. 3513, that's an older image. Let me bring up the newest one here of 3513. There it is. Little bit of complexity there within that region. Also a little companion sunspot down here showing some complexity as well. Can't really say so much or that much for these areas. They all look fairly stable or maybe even decaying further. But I think we need to watch this area up here. It is definitely cracking and popping with a bunch of C flares and M flares, and that region will be coming into view here following in the few days or so when it will be directed at Earth. Looks like right now from 3513 we did see a 2.1. This was I believe last night or yesterday. That's an M2.1 flare. Overall threat right now for flaring activity is 99% chance, 40%, and 10% for the X flare, M flare at 40. So getting a little active from one spot. I guess we'll see how this plays out. No major CMEs have been Earth directed or even produced for that matter. And the aurora forecast is pretty minimal. Storm Prediction Center out here shows a little bit of thunderstorm activity, even in my neck of the woods here in Northern California. Not expecting anything big. We don't get those big-time thunderstorms that they do down in the south or other parts of the country. But there is a chance for some instability and the potential for thunderstorm activity out here today from a low-pressure system bringing in a little bit of rainfall here to California. I think maybe we picked up 0.05 of an inch of rain. That's it. And then we got maybe another chance here tomorrow. Not really expecting too much here. It's a very weak system. After that, Pacific Northwest gets hammered with some more rain, and I'm hoping for a pattern change here, folks. It's been an awfully dry December, or November was very dry as well, but so far we're starting off December awfully dry. We should be seeing a lot more storm systems out here in the West Coast than what we're seeing. The total accumulated precipitation map here over the next couple runs, well, until about December 22nd, of course, all subject to change. Still shows a lot of moisture into the Pacific Northwest, portions of the east and southeast, northeast, all getting quite a bit of rainfall in here. And that's good news for those folks out there needing it. Looks like you got quite a few inches of rain, and I'm sure maybe even some snow mixed in with that as well. 24-hour snowfall. Where's my snowfall? Snow depth. Total snowfall. Yeah, maybe mainly up in the northeast here. Sierra Nevada mountains getting a little bit of snow as well in California. Cascades. And out across the Intermountain West, Wyoming region, getting in on some snowfall as well. But again, that's all subject to change, right? Could definitely change in the blink of an eye. I'm hoping that it will change in for the better for the West Coast anyway. Still seeing some activity here in Southern Cal, 1.3 to 1.4. Don't let this little quiet period here compared to the last couple days fool you. Definitely still looks like something wants to move out here across the Pacific. We'll continue to watch that and report back on any major changes. Little spike of an earthquake there on Petrolia and Barrett at the same time. That just goes to show that there's been adjustment here. Barrett's way down here in Southern Cal. Petrolia is way up here outside of Eureka. So when this plate moves, it seems like it moves along certain sections at the same time. It's crazy. See that? Barrett and Petrolia right here in Barrett Station. Either way, just be safe out there, folks. Be prepared. Expect more earthquakes and aftershocks there in the Philippines. And just got to stay safe and have an earthquake plan. As always, these little earthquakes remind us here the potential for, natural disasters and hazards. It's is it safe anywhere here on this planet in terms of natural hazards and disasters? Probably not. Anywhere out here is capable of seeing that type of earthquakes, whether it's earthquakes or tsunami or volcanoes or an asteroid strike. You never know. So just got to be prepared, have some type of plan. I'm a prepper myself. I keep a lot of stuff on hand and fuel, multiple generators just in case of power grids go down. And you got to take care of your family, right? Walmart's not always going to be open if there's a major disaster. So it's always good to keep stuff on hand. I'm sure a lot of folks that watch this channel do prepare. And, it's always good to prepare. If you get close to an end date on some of this food, start using it up and replace it. Even past the end date, it's not really bad, depending on what type of environment and conditions you keep your food in for long-term storage. All right, I'm going to jump off here, folks, and we'll catch you guys back here a little bit later this evening unless something major happens. Got a 2.5 Puerto Rico right now. And we got 2.5 down south in Chile as well. Stay safe. Enjoy your Wednesday. We'll catch you guys back here a little bit later on. Take care, folks.